Now let's talk about the parasite connection. The big breakthrough for me was finding a video on YouTube which is called Video Proof Cancer is Caused by Parasites. It's like once you see it with your own eyes, then you know how it works. And so when you read these papers about extracellular vesicles and other things I'll talk about, you'll know what they're talking about because you will have seen it. What it shows is different parasites, little worms and other shapes of these alive beings, which are swimming over to cells and then getting inside the cells and then growing from the cells and reproducing in the cells and thereby killing the cells, and their eggs or different larval stage then leaves, and those little larval stages then swim over to other cells and they get in the cells and they reproduce, and it is a life cycle of an alive being. And there are something like 6 different shapes or different types of these really small things, and these are all in cancer cells. The first thing you should know about this is that these are very, very tiny. The reason why this isn't super known is because we're talking about exceedingly small things. You have to have an electron microscope, which is incredibly expensive to not just own, but to maintain. I mean, you have to literally have the right foundation of a building that adjusts for the Earth's movements and stuff. It all has to be in a vacuum. For a comparison, some of these smaller larval stages like the exosomes, well, that's what mainstream science calls them. These exosomes are like 1,000 times smaller than a blood cell. But one of the things that this does is it might explain the conundrum of the metabolic theory for cancer people, which know that something is happening to the mitochondria, but have no proposals as to what that might be. But if these little parasites are getting into a cell, presumably they're living off of that cell's energy produced by the mitochondria, or somehow converting that into their own energy to grow in the cell and to reproduce in the cell, or whatever they need to be. Well, parasites, they're feeding off the cell, and therefore the mitochondria is struggling, and therefore the nucleus is struggling. So, and also understand that, as far as I know, mainstream science doesn't believe that there are parasites this small, on this level of a nanoscale. They call these things, and this is mentioned in that video, the German video, they call it these, because they know these exist. They have seen these same things that we're talking about in this video, but they call them extracellular vesicles. And that's a very important keyword that opened up a huge amount of a treasure trove of research in the medical literature. Extracellular vesicles and cancer. And it's my take on it is that they all know these things are doing this, but their view is that these little vesicles, of which they believe that there are certain types, there's like 6 types of these extracellular vesicles, the smallest of which they call exosomes. They don't believe that they're alive. They believe that they're doing all the things that are in that video, but they don't treat it as if they are alive. They know also that vesicles are the way that cancer cells infect healthy cells. So this is an important thing to know, is that when these extracellular vesicles get into your bloodstream, so let's say this all starts in your blood, and I'll talk about the life cycle later, but once the little eggs can get into your blood, that's kind of okay until they get out of your blood. It's really when they have some kind of endothelial breakdown or something where they can get out of your circulatory system and get into, say, a liver cell or a brain cell or other kinds of cells, that they begin this cell infection in those cells, and that's what they would refer to as metastasizing. So you've got cancer in some area of your body, but then these things get into your bloodstream and go to some other part of your body and then start the infection over there. They understand that it's these cellular vesicles. They've done lots of different studies to show it's these little vesicles that are actually carrying what they consider the information about cancer to the other cells. Remember, they don't think they're alive, so they have to explain it in terms of they're somehow, through interesting unknown means, carrying the information to the other cell and therefore infecting it, where you don't need to come up with that magic. If it's a really alive thing, then it's just a worm that goes over there and reproduces in another cell. So you don't need it to have magic if it's alive. But anyway, one interesting aspect of this, that they know that parasites themselves, so let's talk about a known parasite like a some tapeworm or something. They know that actual parasites, which of course are much, much, much larger than these extracellular vesicles, but they know that parasites can release extracellular vesicles. But they're also carrying the information about which drugs to be resistant to. But for all intents and purposes, it seems to be the same problem, which is that you hit it with chemotherapy, you initially kill most of the cancer cells, but there's this little, what we would call exosomes, or I would call the larva stage, that once they're threatened, and you can see this in the video, which is really interesting, when they're hit with this chemicals, the little worm turns into like 5 of these exosomes. Like it reacts to it by changing its form into these exosomes. And in the parasite world, that's what they do. They hide in these really sturdy stasises for long periods of time. They can live like on a leaf until some animal comes by and eats it, and it can be there for years. But when they express again, when these eggs, for lack of a better word, hatch again, and you have cancer again, now they know to be immune from whatever it is you tried to kill them with in the first place.